I want to pay tribute today to one of the great all-time British Prime Ministers, Tony Blair, who is retiring and who's just done his final speech to the Parliament. Australians, I don't think, realise what a great Prime Minister Tony Blair has been and what a truly Labor Prime Minister he has been in Great Britain. His whole career, I think, has been widely misunderstood. And I think people have failed to realise what a lot of really worthwhile traditional Labor things his government has done. Huge increases in spending on education, and particularly on the opportunity for low-skilled working class people to get genuine retraining in their adult lives to make themselves much more employable. Massive increases in spending on health, huge increases in spending on a whole range of social exclusion areas to give people a genuine opportunity to participate in what is still a very class-ridden society. Big redistribution of income through things like child benefit and changes in the structure of the national insurance scales so that poorer people have got better disposable incomes. Civil partnerships for gay and lesbian couples so that they get genuine recognition. Intervention in a range of appalling circumstances in countries like Sierra Leone, Bosnia, Kosovo, driven by the most honourable humanitarian principles. Tony Blair's a hero in Sierra Leone, for example, and if you know anything about the tragic history of that country in the last 15 years, you'd understand why. And of course, the huge effort that's been made by the Blair government under both his and Gordon Brown's stewardship to massively increase foreign aid and increase the degree of responsibility that the West takes for tackling entrenched global poverty, particularly in Africa. These are just some of the things that Tony Blair and the Blair government deserve enormous credit for. In many respects, it's a great tragedy that his enormous achievements are overshadowed by one giant mistake, which I would still say was an honest mistake delivered because of his own view of the world, and I think that liberal internationalism taken just one step too far, and that of course is the invasion of Iraq. He was too trusting, he was too willing to fall into line with George Bush, he was too prepared to think that military intervention could reshape the Middle East when the problems there are just intractable, extremely complex, and certainly not susceptible to the old colonial powers yet again invading and seeking to impose their will on a variety of communities in the different countries in the Middle East. But setting Iraq aside, I think Tony Blair is entitled to be seen as a great Labor Prime Minister. And for those who would argue that he's just been an opportunist, that he has no philosophy, or that he's somehow the son of Margaret Thatcher, I think they are 100% wrong, and I think they've got no understanding of the evolution of modern Western society and how the old linear divide between left and right, which was all built around the material take of different sections of the community from the process of production, has completely broken down. And we now have different political fault lines and emerging differences where Tony Blair in a sense has been a pioneer, and particularly one of the key themes that he has advocated, and I'm biased because I've pushed the same line in a book I published 8 or 9 years ago, and that is that increasingly modern political issues in countries like ours revolve around the question, are we to be an open or a closed society? Globalisation is an issue that transcends the questions of traditional left and right. It transcends the issues of the carve-up of the society's resources or income between competing classes that gave birth to the industrial world contest between left and right, between working class and middle class, or labour and capital. All of those things are still there, but there is a new framework of ideological contest emerging, and Tony Blair is a key player in the debate on that different level that has emerged in recent years. He is a genuinely ideological person, agree or disagree with his point of view, but the notion that he is somehow some kind of opportunist or son of the Tories, I think, is simply facile. So although I'm an Australian and I have no significant connection with or role with British politics other than knowing quite a number of the senior Labor figures, I follow British politics very closely, and for all of the facile, nonsensical media coverage that you get in Australia about British politics, because inevitably it's very limited. James Button, I'd have to say, is a significant exception in the age, but generally speaking people know very little about these things. I just want to put on the record that I've been a Tony Blair fan from day one, and I still am. He has been a great British Prime Minister. I think the invasion and occupation of Iraq is appalling. I think that's a dreadful mistake, but I think his overall record as a leader of Britain shouldn't be judged only on that one issue. It should be judged across the board, and across the board, from a traditional Labor perspective, in my view, the record is really, really good.